We're going to look at some of the basic ideas of punctuation in our sentences. We're just going to go over a couple of patterns that some of you all are still having problems with. The first one we want to look at is what makes a complete sentence, and if you're getting fused or if you S on your paper, it means that it's not a complete sentence. And we have to write in complete sentences, and that means it has to be uh, both a subject and a predicate, a noun verb in the sentence that tells what the action is and who's doing the action. I've got an example here. And a complete sentence starts with a capital, it ends with a period, question mark, or exclamation mark. It has both subject and predicate, the noun and a verb, the actor and the action that the actors do. It must also state a complete thought or idea. If you call someone in the middle of the night and say, she ran, well, that has a subject, it has a verb, but it doesn't have a complete thought or idea because that person being awakened out of the asleep would not understand what that meant. So it must also state a complete thought. So let's look at one example. And this one would be something that you may look at and say, well, the century, what? The century followed. Well, could be, but the century that followed Socrates' death, and that's the noun phrase. So, now what's the main noun? Did Socrates' death see or saw something? No. Did it followed see something? No. Century that followed the century saw. What century? The century that followed Socrates' death saw something. It saw the exhaustion of the Greek city states. Okay, so we know that this is your noun, this is the actor, and this is the action. It's easier to find the action first. Find the action first, and then find what is doing or who is doing the action, and you'll find your noun, your subject. If you look at that to your own sentences, then you'll begin to get practice and you won't have to work so hard at it. But if you continue to work on, especially in the last essay, when I'm going to be grading on this even more, you may not do as well. And you have this in a handout called punctuation patterns. The subject in the above sentence is a noun phrase. The basic noun is the simple subject century. How do I know? Who or what saw? Always find the action first. Socrates didn't see anything. He was dead. Saw is the verb. It's always easiest to find the action first. Aiden, here's another example. Aiden has the highest score for Assassin's Creed. Okay, we've got a lot of nouns here. Assassin's Creed is uh, a, a noun. It's a name. Score is a noun. High isn't a noun. It's an adjective. Aiden is a noun. If we look for the action in this sentence, what is it? And the predicate is a verb called a to be verb. It shows existence. I am, I'm down here. We are, you are, you are, he, she, or he is, they are, I was, I have been, I am being. This shows that you exist or something exists. Now we know the subject and verb. We try to limit to use of these to be verbs as much as we can, and we rather use active verbs. So if we find that this is your verb, who has? Aiden. So here's your subject. Here's your verb has. And here's your subject Aiden. Now, if a sentence doesn't have a complete thought, it isn't a complete sentence. So if you call me in the middle of the night and say, John ran, I'd say, I wouldn't have enough information. It's technically a complete sentence, but really it isn't. So the first sentence, the first page in punctuation patterns shows you how to make a complete sentence and not have the fragments. And I said something a minute ago about fused. I did not mean that. I meant fragments. If you don't have all this, you will have a fragment, not a fused sentence. We'll do that in a minute. So if you heard that, I was made that mistake. Pattern 2, a dependent clause, that's called a fragment, an incomplete sentence, or subordinate clause. It can't stand alone. It needs either a noun or verb or more information. So it's just a dependent clause. Example, surfacing 40 feet in front of them. What surface? We're missing the subject. We have our noun, so let's find our action first. 40 is not a verb, it's no action. Feet is not a verb. In front of them, none of those are verbs. So what's our verb? What's the action? Surfacing. So this would be a fragment. What is surfacing? We could say we could do this, surfaced. Okay, there's what surfaced. So we changed it to ed. The whale was. You may remember this as a helping verb. So we have our to be verb. And here, what? The whale was. The whale was what? Was surfacing. And here's your verb. One would say, what are you talking about? What surface? We're missing the subject. Sentence structures like this is a mistake. And it's not acceptable. The crew could see the whale. Now here, this becomes what's happening? Well, we're seeing a whale surface, but what's the main action? Seeing. Seeing is the main action here. Who could see? The crew could see. So that's pattern 3. So you have to have a subject or a noun. An independent clause and a dependent clause, also called a fragment or incomplete sentence, join with a coordinated conjunction and ended with a period. Notice that we do not use a comma to separate the causes. This is because that our dependent clause does not have a subject or a verb in it between these words. And I'll show you. Here's our coordinated conjunction. They're and, but, or, for, so, nor, yet. They are called coordinating conjunctions, and maybe if you remember from Schoolhouse Rock about the coordinating conjunction. But one way to remember it would be in a mnemonic device for and, nor, but, or, yet, and so, fanboys. So any of these words, and this is all there is, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, only seven coordinating conjunctions. And if you find this in the middle of the sentence to decide whether it has to have a comma there or not, look at what's either side of it. Took on water. Let's look at this. Took on water. What took on water? If we look here, the old, I thought I maybe could do this, but it's not going to let me, is it? We could go here. What did? Oh well. The old ship took on water. The old ship listed from side to side. You do not put a comma there. You do put a comma if you have two independent clauses, complete sentence joined by a comma and a coordinating conjunction, and ended with a period, and here's your list. The same one. So if I have, here I've got, here is my, this is my subject. Here's my subject. Here's my action. Here's my action. These are equal, and we put a comma between them. If we just said took on water without a subject, we don't. The next one that we'll talk about one more, and you can read this and just take your list and look through your paper. The next one is a semicolon. You have to have two independent clauses, and you do not put a coordinating conjunction. Okay? You do not put an and or but nor all those. You don't put anything. You could put a period here, and it's when they're very close connection. I cannot watch the reality show Honey Boo Boo. I could put a period here because what? Watch who there's your action and your who's doing the action. Feel is your action here. Who feels sorry? I feel sorry. So we know that this is both independent clauses, complete sentences. I could put a period here, but perhaps I want them to make them sound a little bit closer, or I could do and I really feel sorry for you. That would be a correct one. There's three ways you could do this. It's totally up to you. But you have to know that you have two independent complete sentences on either side of this semicolon. Okay, here's another one. If you use these words, these are called, and it doesn't matter if you remember what these are called, conjunctions, adverbs. Here's your list. There's your list. Use them, independent clause at the beginning, semicolon, conjunctive adverb, any of these words here, comma, another independent clause, as long as you know what your independent clauses are. If you start with a conjunctive adverb, go right back up here to this list, you begin it, you say accordingly, comma, then your independent clause, semicolon, independent clause. You have subordinate conjunction. after, and then you have a comma and end up. Let's see example here. Another one. A lot of you all. This is one I see a lot because we use it. If you do the essay correctly, comma, is this a complete sentence here? Yes. What you do the essay correctly. That's an order. Or we can even, if John does, let's do it even more, writes. There's you some action. Who's doing the action? John. But if I put if in front of it, I have to put a comma when that ends. He will get, and there's your second part of it. So if John, anytime you put that, one of these subordinate conjunctions, it means that you need more information. If I say, if John writes the essay correctly, I can't put a period there because it's not a complete sentence. I have to know more information. Pattern 9, subordinate conjunction, no comma. Don't put a comma in front of because. It is not a coordinating conjunction. It is subordinate conjunction. If you put it in the middle between two independent clauses, you do not put a comma there. I don't care how many times you see it in the newspaper, in writing, it is incorrect. And you see it a lot, and it is wrong every time you see it. Let's see. Here's some more information, and you can go and look through that. Okay, I hope this helps, and let me know if you have any questions.